Hey there guys, how's it going? Back with another movie review. Now, those of you who have been following my channel will know that I've said many times on here, in regards to when I review movies, one of my all-time favorite series in regards to action movies and martial arts movies is the Undisputed series. Now, you guys might recall, long-time viewers of mine might recall that a few years ago I did a review for the fourth movie in the series, Undisputed 4, not long after that movie came out. That was the fourth and final movie in the series. If you guys want to check out my review for that, I'll leave a link in the description section. And I thought, why not go back, watch all the Undisputed movies, and review the entire series? So I'm going to make a separate playlist, and I'm going to review the entire Undisputed series in retrospect. So starting with the first one. So Undisputed was released in 2002. This movie is very different to all the other movies in the series. Now, the other movies in the series were very fast-paced, action-heavy martial arts flicks, whereas this movie isn't really a fast-paced action movie. It does have plenty of action, it does have plenty of martial arts. However, this is a lot more of a dramatic, character-driven movie than the other ones. And I would definitely say that based on that, although I do like this movie a lot, and I think it has a lot going for it, I'd say it's probably the weakest in the series. I would say that I probably like all the sequels more than this, and I think most people agree with me that the sequels were actually a lot better. And let's talk about it. So, Undisputed, as I mentioned, released in 2002, it stars Wesley Snipes and Ving Rhames, and like most of the Undisputed movies, it's centered around prison. Basically, George the Iceman Chambers, played by Ving Rhames, is the heavyweight champion of the world, and his world comes crashing down basically when his partner accuses him of rape and he gets sent to prison. Now, the story of this was definitely, as far as I can tell, inspired by the Mike Tyson story. Obviously, Mike Tyson, when he was a top level heavyweight, experienced the same thing. He was accused of rape and he was sent to prison for a few years, and this was definitely inspired by that. One of the things I liked about this movie is it's never actually made clear in the movie whether or not he was guilty. That's one of the things that they left up to the imagination of the viewer. It's implied early on in the movie that it was a lie and that it was done for money. However, it's also implied later in the movie that it actually might have been true. And yeah, it kind of doesn't really go into it much, which is of course very realistic because in the real world, in real life, you'd never know unless you were there. So that was interesting to me. And there are a few like boxing cameos in this movie, like Jim Lampley, of course, who was a very well-known boxing journalist. A commentator for HBO for many years. He makes an appearance in this movie, a cameo appearance, and yeah, it centers around the prison. George Chambers gets sent into the prison and he finds out that the prison has basically a boxing program and they have their own champion. Now, their own champion is a guy called Monroe Hutchins, played by Wesley Snipes, who, of course, is a very well-known martial arts actor. Been in many action movies. Was the star of the Blade movies and whatnot, and has been in just so many action films over the years. And definitely back in 2002, he was probably at the peak of his popularity. And yeah, he's the standout here. Wesley Snipes was very good in this movie. He plays this guy who's basically a former professional boxer who was himself convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison, and basically becomes the prison champion. And he's this very cool and mellow, laid-back guy who's very chill and very respectful and doesn't really go looking for trouble, but likes to let off steam in the ring and whatnot. And basically, the mob from inside of the prison get the idea of matching these two against each other for a fight to make a lot of money, for a boxing match within the prison between Wesley Snipes' character and Ving Rhames' character. And yeah, it's a really interesting plot to me. The way that they get these guys together, basically there's a lot of tension building between them throughout the whole movie. Ving Rhames, because he is the heavyweight champion of the world, and he finds that this prison has got a champion. He wants to sort of lay down the law and mark his territory and let it be known that he's the champion. There's a scene where he sort of goes up to Monroe Hutchins and slaps him, and he says, "Ain't no champ here but me." and he's definitely trying to be the alpha in the prison, and there's just so much tension building between them. There's some cool fight sequences where Ving Rhames has a punch up, with a lot of other prisoners and whatnot, and basically he looks the part in this movie. He's in very good shape, very big, intimidating looking guy, and definitely did look the part in this movie. And the fight sequence towards the end between him and Monroe Hutchins, played by Wesley Snipes. The way that fight is built up, there's sort of a contrast between the two. You've got Chambers, who's like a big, like hulking, intimidating guy, who's very powerful and imposing, and then you've got Hutchins, who's like slimmer and smaller, but he's a lot quicker and more agile and more skilled and more accurate and whatnot. And it's a very interesting blend of styles, and it makes for a really excellent fight sequence towards the end of the movie. And I just think this is a really solid flick. I think it's a really good movie. Again, it's not my favorite in the series. I do prefer the sequels to this, which I will get to, when I review the sequels. But I think this was a solid movie. I think it was well cast. I think it was well acted, well written. There's plenty of drama. There's plenty of character development. And the action sequences that are there, even though they're few and far between, they're fun to watch. They're really fun to look at, and I definitely think that although this movie is, it feels set apart from the rest of the movies in the series, because I mean, George Chambers in the second movie was played by Michael J. White, so they had a completely different cast, and seems like a completely different character in terms of his demeanor. They do somewhat hint to this movie being canon because they mention he was in prison before, but I think as a standalone movie, this movie's very good. Although I do prefer the sequels, I just think that this one, as its own thing, was a decent movie. It's more of a boxing movie than it is a straight up like martial arts flick. If you're into boxing and if you like boxing movies, you'll enjoy this one. I know I certainly did. So yeah, I'm gonna give Undisputed a 7 out of 10. Um, I'm going to be reviewing the second movie soon. That's probably going to be out within the next couple of days. So stay tuned for my review for Undisputed 2. And I'm going to make a playlist, as I mentioned, of Undisputed movies. So yeah, make sure to check that out. As I said, I've already done a review for Undisputed 4. So you can check that one out if you want to. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. God bless.